Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever felt like making friends as an adult is just completely exhausting, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're basically playing detective. We're going to solve this massive biological and environmental mystery. Why does building deep, meaningful connections seem to get infinitely harder the older we get? We're going to dive right into the hard science behind human connection. And honestly, I promise you, by the time we wrap this up, you're going to look at your own relationships in a completely different light.
Right, so let's set the scene. We have all been here. Picture this. You're at a crowded networking event, or maybe just a community get-together. You're surrounded by people. You've got the polite smiles going, you're making small talk, exchanging pleasantries, maybe even chuckling at a few jokes. But then, hours later, you get home, take off your shoes, and realize you feel totally disconnected. Actually, scratch that. You might even feel more alone than before you left the house.
It's this wild paradox we all feel, right? Think back to when we were kids on the playground. Making a best friend literally took about 5 minutes and, a shared interest in the blue swing? But as adults, it feels like climbing an insurmountable mountain. It totally makes us wonder, is there something wrong with me? Have I just lost my social touch? But the truth is actually far more scientific and, to be honest, a whole lot more comforting.
The contrast here is huge. Think about it. In childhood, connection was practically forced on us. Through the beautiful chaos of recess and matching lunchboxes, it was literally a mathematically perfect environment for repeated interactions. But adulthood? Wow. Just scheduling a casual coffee can take 3 weeks, a doodle poll, and completely synchronized Google Calendars. Our modern lives are built on time scarcity, moving across the country for jobs, and just exhausting daily routines. We simply don't have that built-in environmental scaffolding anymore.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look way back to our evolutionary roots. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in these small, tight-knit hunter-gatherer tribes. Physical survival quite literally depended on stable social groups and reciprocal altruism. You help your neighbor, they help you, and the whole tribe survives. The crucial takeaway here is that we evolved to rely on deeply stable groups. Our brains simply didn't evolve to constantly form brand new friendships from scratch in these transient, fast-paced environments we live in now.
And this perfectly tees up the fascinating work of evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar. He proposed the social brain hypothesis. This suggests that our massive human brain size, our advanced intelligence, it didn't primarily evolve so we could invent cool tools or become better hunters. No, it evolved because we desperately needed to survive and navigate the immensely complex web of our stable social groups. To put it simply, our intelligence is literally a byproduct of our fundamental need to belong.
What this really means is that friendship isn't just some warm, fuzzy feeling. It is hardwired into us, deeply rooted in these incredibly complex neurological systems. When you connect with a friend, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. You've got your mirror neuron system firing up to literally help you feel what they're feeling. Meanwhile, your default mode network is working overtime to help you read complex social cues and create that profound underlying sense of psychological safety.
And all of that intense brain activity, it creates a very specific, powerful chemical cocktail. These 4 neurochemicals are the absolute drivers of human connection. You have oxytocin, which powers our trust and emotional bonding. Dopamine kicks in to make socializing feel rewarding. Serotonin steps up to regulate our mood and give us a sense of significance. And endorphins? They actually act as a physical painkiller for social distress. This biological soup is literally what drives our empathy and our entire sense of belonging.
So this brings up a really compelling curiosity gap. Think about it. If we possess all of this incredible biological hardware, fine-tuned over millennia specifically for deep connection, why are we currently facing an unprecedented global loneliness epidemic? Why are we struggling so much?
Well, here's the twist, and honestly, it is a huge relief to discover this. The true culprit isn't your personality. It has nothing to do with a lack of charisma. It is a massive structural shift in our modern environment. A lack of opportunity, rather than personal failure, is hands down the single biggest obstacle to modern adult friendship. We are essentially just fish out of water.
These societal shifts are profound. We've traded a traditional world, one that was rich in community spaces, neighborhood participation, and constant face-to-face interaction, for a modern reality defined by remote work that keeps us trapped in our homes and rising urban isolation. We have essentially designed a world of extreme individualism that has inadvertently but completely fragmented our communities.
And the toll this shift is taking, it's devastating. Loneliness isn't just a fleeting, sad mood.
Landmark mortality studies show it manifests as actual, literal social pain in the brain. It's linked to severe declines in mental health, massive spikes in social anxiety, and this paralyzing fear of rejection. Research even directly links chronic loneliness to higher mortality rates. So yeah, it physically threatens our health.
Naturally, we try to fix this, right? We try to fill the void with digital replacements, mindlessly scrolling social media, relying on parasocial relationships with influencers, or even chatting with AI companions. But science clearly shows these platforms often fail to replace the actual physiological regulation of face-to-face bonding. A text message, no matter how nice, simply doesn't trigger the same massive oxytocin release or biological emotional safety as sitting across from someone, actively listening to them in a shared physical space.
So, we're facing a pretty big dilemma. We know our environment is working against us, and we know our digital quick fixes fall short. But we obviously can't just pack up and go back to living in hunter-gatherer tribes on the savannah. So how do we actually solve this modern mystery? How can we use behavioral science to intentionally trigger our brain's friendship mechanisms in today's world?
Well, the very first step is managing our expectations, which brings us right back to Robin Dunbar. This number, 150, is famously known as Dunbar's number. It represents the absolute cognitive limit to how many stable social relationships our human brains can effectively handle at any given time. It's a really powerful reminder that we need to focus on quality, consistency, and emotional depth, rather than exhausting ourselves with endless, shallow networking.
Now, the master key to really solving this is a psychological phenomenon known as the mere exposure effect. This essentially proves that people develop a preference for others merely because they are familiar with them. What that means for us is that simply showing up to the same place repeatedly, like a local coffee shop, a dog park, or a weekly pottery class, is literally the single most powerful catalyst for connection.
Turning an acquaintance into a close friend is actually a fairly predictable formula. Step 1 is that mere exposure and repeated contact. You have to be seen consistently. Step 2 is shared vulnerability, gradually opening up over time, which signals to the other person's brain that you are a safe presence. And step 3 is maintaining that emotional safety through consistency. By intentionally leaning into these specific psychological principles, we can actually rebuild what the modern world took away from us. We can trigger the similarity attraction effect just by joining groups focused on our own interests. We can practice active listening, and we can build shared goals by doing things like volunteering for a local cause or joining a recreational sports league. It's this exact kind of reciprocity that builds robust, unshakable emotional safety. As we look toward the future of human connection, the landscape is honestly only going to get more complex. We're going to have to actively navigate the ongoing isolation of remote work, the bizarre new frontiers of social robots, and expanding virtual reality communities. The goal here isn't to reject the future, but to carefully balance the very real risks of digital isolation with the incredible opportunities of new, scientifically backed loneliness interventions.
Look, if you take away anything from this explainer today, let it be this. You absolutely do not need to be the funniest, smartest, or most charismatic person in the room to make friends. True friendship doesn't require these huge, cinematic, life-altering moments. It develops through a high volume of many small, positive, and consistent interactions. Seriously, you just need to be consistent. I absolutely love this profound takeaway from the research. The strongest friendships rarely begin with extraordinary moments. They grow quietly through ordinary moments shared over time. It just beautifully proves that time, proximity, and shared vulnerability are the true architects of connection.
Understanding your biology and the environmental challenges we all face gives you this incredible power to adapt. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought as you step back out into the world armed with all this science. How will you spend your next ordinary moment? Will you use it to show up, be seen, and quietly build a connection? The choice and the science is entirely yours.